Hello, I am Dan.
And I'm Max.
And this is Fightography.
Fightography is... How would you describe Fightography?
Fightography it's a brilliant concept that definitely has legs, and you're going to be listening to this for 200 episodes. We're going to have a huge following. Basically, what happens if you take one actor, one algorithm-friendly actor, if preferable, you take 10 of their characters, you throw them into a Royal Rumble, if that's not copyrighted, and you see who comes out on top. You throw it into a copyright-friendly Poundland knockoff version of a Royal Rumble, and you see who comes out on top. Who wins? Which character is mightiest gladiator?
Each week we'll be choosing an actor and selecting some of their most iconic roles and seeing which one would win in a fight. Because that's the question on everyone's ears. On everyone's ears? On everyone's
Dear listener, we're new to this, as you can probably tell, but you're in for a wild ride.
This is episode 1, and I feel like I should get a publicist. So I'm announcing some kind of...
I'm going to lawyer up after this.
Anyway, so Tom Hardy is episode 1. Why did we start with Tom Hardy?
Well, Tom Hardy...
What is it about Tom Hardy that attracts us?
Tom Hardy, he's a lovely bloke, and he's got quite the range behind him of parts. The best photographies are going to be the ones which have like a range of parts. If it's all variations of a gangster from the 1980s, it's not going to be very interesting. But Tom Hardy, there's a dude in a plane.
The Martin Scorsese episode.
Oh, shots fired. Tom Hardy, you've got weirdos, you've got weirdos in a plane, weirdos in a car, regular old weirdos. You've got a whole bunch.
He's got a lot of weirdos. He plays a lot of weirdos, but lovable. I think they're amazing. Tom Hardy, I think he's got of all the actors, I would love to have the sort of range of characters that he's done. He's played a DC villain. He's played a Marvel villain. He's played very iconic historical characters. He's played bizarre characters on some of the best TV shows in the UK.
He's
got such an incredible range.
Oh yeah. He's played the lead in the one of the best films of last year, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, cinematic masterpiece.
Yep.
Love story of our time, really. It's beautiful.
Have you seen that picture? It's like a video, and this guy's just like the best shot of Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, and it's like it's a screenshot of when Venom's falling over in the final fight, and it just shows his big feet with his big toes and his big black toes, and you can see Venom toes. Have you seen that picture of Venom toes?
I have sadly seen this picture, yes. Quentin Tarantino's favourite Marvel film for that shot alone.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do today with Tom Hardy, our first gladiator of Fightography, is I've selected 10 characters and 1 wild card. We're going to go through these characters, have a little bit of discussion about them, and then pitch this hypothetical. What if they all just spawn in an arena, in a random plane view, a jungle, landscape? Who's going to win in a battle to the death?
Now,
Are you excited, Dan?
I am very excited. I cannot wait. I think, just to clarify with the arena, there's no environmental factors here. If there's a vampire involved, the sun's not going to come out. It's just pure Hardy versus Hardy versus Hardy, carrying on for 10 at +1.
Hardy versus... We're promising Hardy versus Hardy action. If that's not a great way to begin a podcast, then what is?
It's the
Hardy
best start.
Hardy action.
Every podcast should have a Hardy versus Hardy.
So Dan, should I go through this list?
Yes, please hit me with your 10 plus your wild card. I give them like the full-on wrestler introduction.
So in no particular order, I there is quite a particular order on like which ones are the most obvious and which ones are people definitely going to want to see in this death match, to scrolling through his wiki and seeing what other interesting films he's been in and selecting those. And then the wild card, which... well, the interesting thing with Tom Hardy is we've done this... We practiced with this before, about 6 months ago, when we first come up with the concept. We had a bit of a role play in sort of which Tom Hardy would fit into this episode.
What do you mean, Max? This is spontaneous and off the cuff.
Okay. This is spontaneous and off the cuff.
No, it's true. It's true. Well, I think we should let the listener behind the curtain. Yeah, as you said, we've done a.
It's been a while.
It has,
and we're going to come at this with a fresh look. And also, Tom Hardy has been in films since that discussion, so there may be some additions that weren't in our previous... There aren't any. There aren't. I've just realised, looking at my list, there aren't.
I mean, a continuation of one character has come out since we did that first one. So.
Yes. Black Toes. So, number one, we have, in no particular order...
Yes.
Mr. Charles Bane. Bane from The Dark Knight Rises.
Gotham's Reckoning!
What do you think his legal name is?
Bane's legal name? It's got to be an actual DC canon legal name out there.
They probably say in the film, but he's not going to be called Charles or Henry Thompson.
I don't know, because what do they call Robin in that film? He's just called like James or something, isn't he? He's just like a regular old dude.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, he plays himself as Robin in that film. It's an interesting version of the character.
Okay, so here's already controversial thing. How are you rating the three Dark Knight or the Dark Knight trilogy?
The films or just the villains?
The films.
Okay. I think the Dark Knight's got to go on top, which isn't exactly a hot take, but it just does.
No. I think that's...
Then it can be interesting, because Batman Begins versus The Dark Knight Rises. I don't know, because I've not seen it for a while, but I did have some hot takes about the whole trilogy, which... Yeah.
I'll just go out and say it. I like Batman Begins.
Batman Begins is good.
I think it's just more solid, more compact, more sort of airtight. There aren't as many kind of holes and flaws you can sort of poke into it. And I guess The Dark Knight Rises tries to do more and tries to be a bit more on that epic blockbuster scale. But you know me, I kind of like the small... I mean, it's not a small film at all, but I like that it's sort of a fairly simplistic structure done quite well. Yeah.
I mean, The Dark Knight Rises does have Tom Hardy as Bane, so it does have a big old trump card.
It's, we sort of have to root for The Dark Knight Rises, because look at these two amazing films, and we're going to focus on this one. But no, I do. If there is a standout, Tom Hardy as Bane is my favourite part of the film, hands down, by quite a significant margin. Other than Michael Caine doing his...
Oh, good old Michael Caine.
Is iconic. I failed you. But even then, it's not as good as Lamborghini.
Lamborghini, sir. Much more subtle.
The Lamborghini, sir. Much more subtle.
I think... I'll tell you what it might come down to, actually, thinking about it. The fight choreography. Is it better in Batman Begins or Dark Knight Rises? Because the way it's shot in Batman Begins, it's really choppy. Like, the way it's edited together, it's really cut.
Quite possible. What I do love is the scene when Bane and Batman fight in the day, and there's just a shot, and it's not a one take at all, but they sort of... It's just this shot, and they stick with it. They don't make it too choppy. And it's just Bane getting so pissed off that Batman's sort of winning the fight that he just starts throwing punches just wildly. And it's when he takes out that kind of big chunk of boulder. And it's just so nice. It's so cool to watch as like a comic book fan and as a fan of Bane. Yeah. Just to kind of have a still shot of him like throwing hands, Batman dodging him, and him just like taking out like a chunk of concrete.
Yeah.
That was maybe my favourite shot of the film. And it's not really talked about that much.
No?
Maybe because... maybe because I overhype it, but I like it. So
I'll tell you what my biggest
going
problem
into
with
this,
Dark
Bane-
Knight Rises is. So just while we're on the subject, I think the problem is that our lad Bane, our boy Bane, is undercut by the fact that the entire thing isn't really his plan, because obviously you have that final twist, and she's like, "Well, I was the master plan all along, Bruce." Old Talia. And Bane's just sort of like a lapdog, which is a shame because the entire film he's the best bit. Yeah.
It's a tricky one. I don't particularly mind him not being the sort of leader of it, or I sort of bought into the idea that, you know, there was someone higher up and he was just the sort of kind of, I don't know, there was someone sitting in the chair higher up while he was kind of in the control room doing all the work. I think why that may annoy people so much is because that bit is revealed and then he's just sort of instantly killed and taken out of the script. There's no kind of, I know you have that final fight with him and there's that awesome shot which I love, but it doesn't feel like there's some great final climactic kind of fight scene. Well, that's meant to be it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel maybe that climactic, and then he's just out of the film in a very kind of quick moment.
Unceremonious, just bam.
And a quip. I love it when, the best part of a film is ruined by a quip. I'm somewhat of a scientist myself. Anyway.
That's a future episode lined up right there. Oh, dear.
So Bane, going into this, he's going to be a strong favourite, isn't he? He's got the mind, he's got the muscles, he's got the something else beginning with M.
Yes, he does. I think is he your champion?
I don't know
Max?
what the word is.
Is he your champion? Because I think we've both got to have a champion going into this.
I'll have to review who my favourite is, because there's a lot of people to get through. And I think I'll decide once we go through everyone, once we talk about everyone. But Bane, he's definitely going to be a strong favourite. But sometimes, when you're the favourite, people can turn on you and go for you and be very tactical against you. So maybe are we accepting that there's no prior knowledge of the other characters? I don't know. We make the rules.
I think it's a case of like classic Marvel Secret Wars style. These characters have been summoned here. They've been told by our godlike voices that you must fight. There is no reasoning, no talking.
They don't know anything. It's just they arrive. There's a brief couple of seconds of what the fuck's going on, and then it's just these are enemies. We've got to take these suckers down.
It's backbreaking time, as Bane would probably say.
Well, in that case, it's
backbreaking time.
I think if Bane has one flaw going into this battle, he's a monologue fighter, and I just don't know in the chaotic heap that he's found himself in. I worry that there's going to be too much monologue. Oh.
I guess that's while we're on the subject of Tom Hardy's voice.
You're fucked, buddy.
That's another problem that I imagine a lot of our fighters are going to have. Even if they wanted to talk to each other, they can't, because they've all got a weird voice gimmick where none of them can understand each other because they're all muffled and in a weird ass accent.
Well, speaking of muffled and weird ass accents, let's go into our next champion, gladiator, whatever the hell. Fightographer subject, which is Venom.
Hey!
Imagine if I didn't put him on this list.
He's. I can tell you right now, Venom is my champion. Yeah, I back. Venom, I'm backing all the way. He is the romantic lead of our time. We stan Venom and his weird black toes all the way.
I think, yeah. I mean, Venom. It's obvious that he's another one. Bane versus Venom is something you're going to get on this podcast. Gonna use that for the trailer. So yeah, Venom and Bane, they're definitely the standout favourites. And they're just huge monsters, masses. Venom's got stretchy arms, so he's got a short range advantage and a long range advantage. I would say though, if there is sort of one, if we're going to go off the Venom films that Tom Hardy's in, the human Tom Hardy character, Eddie Brock, he's got quite a I don't know. He's very reluctant to do damage a lot of the time. So I don't know if that's going to be tricky. You know, that's going to be difficult for him to overcome. You know, fighting, trying to take out all these guys when there's going to be somebody in the back of his head telling him no. And I don't know, is he able to physically prevent him from doing so? If so, it could be problematic in this battle.
Well, as hardcore fans of 2018's Venom will be able to tell you, Venom Venom can just override Eddie Brock entirely, because there's that scene in this apartment where all the guys are coming for him, and then Venom's like, just shut up, let me do the driving, true. And it just kicks ass. But yeah,
it's true.
Their biggest problem is that they are a massive goofball, which I love them for. But in a gladiator arena, who knows what might happen?
Very interesting. So you love the two Venom films, don't you?
I think we're slightly divided, because I stan Venom, as I said. I think the first one, in terms of the actual films, the first Venom is fine at best, but Tom Hardy is great in it. And Venom 2, when that came out, as soon as I saw the first trailer, I realised they were leaning into everything that worked about the first one, which is Tom Hardy being just freaky as fuck. The hilarious interplay between Eddie and Venom. They really lent into that. And I really dug it. I think the second film really leads into the sort of weird goofball nature of that character, or certainly that interpretation of that character. And I think it's all the better for it. It's a romantic comedy for our time with some action in there. There's some Carnage dude showing up, but he doesn't really matter. You know, he's fine. But what we really want to see is Eddie and Venom make out with each other.
I actually kind of like the romantic element in Carnage, because they've got quite a nice romantic sort of story in a sense. I wish it was explored a bit more, because I think there is something, especially someone who's a fan of the Thomas Harris Hannibal. Is his name Thomas Harris? Yeah. Hannibal novels. There is something quite that works a lot with mixing romance with kind of gritty gothic violence. So I love that aspect, really.
Yeah, it would be an interesting angle to explore, because it's not something they normally do with Carnage. So I wish they'd, if they were going to do it, had let into it a bit more. But yeah, no, it was weird, because Carnage was the thing that most people were hyped for going in, and then he's not the weakest part of the film, because he's got some good stuff. The weakest part's probably Shriek, his love interest, but yeah, I think if it wasn't for a few other films last year, I'd be tempted to make Venom 2 my film of the year, just because it's so absolutely batshit.
Interesting. That's good. That's fine.
It's
allowed to.
Of course, the trouble is some actually legitimate.
That's what the theme of the film is about.
Yeah,
love is a difficult being. Sometimes it comes in the form as a big black fuck off alien, and a red one, a red skinny alien. What do you think the thing is there? Is it just because is Carnage skinny just because Woody Harrelson's character is skinny in comparison to Eddie Brock?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Or was there like some alien space gym?
I'm not entirely sure how symbiote logic works, because like some of them have got like freaky hair and shit in the comics. I think he's purely skinny because he's like born from a piece of Venom, or like a little baby. So like, but then in the film,
there's not a big fuck off alien space gym.
I don't think so. Maybe there is. But then
I'm gonna have to take that into consideration for this battle now.
Would Venom be able to work out on
Bane's
his own?
Been hitting the gym.
Is it like a symbiote gym where he can work out on his own, or does he have to like bond to someone else to go to the gym? That's the question.
There's so little we know about Venom's backstory. One which we'll find out in later films.
Venom 3, Let There Be Toxin.
So we've got Bane, we've got Venom. Another gladiator entering the arena to face off against these humongous, powerful, villainous creatures.
Who could stand against
the character Ivan Locke. in the film Locke. The middle-aged man who drives a car for 90 minutes, talks about his wife's pregnancy, is going to be going up against Venom and Bane. I actually love the film. I think it's a really fun film. For a film, I feel like, you know, the writer, not that this is true, but the writer gave himself a task of like, oh, let's try and make a film that takes place just in a car. And to make a film that takes place just in a car, not even outside the car, okay, a bit at the start, but entirely in a car and make it engaging, I think that's quite an achievement. However, the character is not of Venom and Bane proportions.
Now, there is a thing here. Locke spends, as you said, almost the entirety of the film in the car. And so I think it's only fair for our little fight here that Locke spends the fight in the car. So whilst he may simply be a mere mortal man, he does have the advantage of being in a car, which could give him some points.
We are making a ruling that if a character, you know, if part of the character features within the vehicle, that under evaluating and assessing the context of that character, we will allow them to be in said vehicle. So Ivan Locke is in a car in some jungle somewhere or some plain land against Bane and Venom. And with 3 characters in, and I'm already excited to see how this goes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you recall, as you were saying, at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, Bane might have some trouble against a car because he's ultimately taken out by a vehicle. Albeit
Anne Hathaway on a bike.
Exactly. So can Tom Hardy in a car beat Tom Hardy with a mask? That's what we'll find out. And I think I sense, I don't know the rest of your list, Max, but I sense that this rule may come into play once again, slightly further on.
This list has been made with that rule very much in place. So it's going to get pretty fucking chaotic later on. The thing I like about Locke as well is his lovely Welsh accent, which is sort of a little bit Indian as well, dare I say. Have you seen it? Have you seen Locke, Dan? Did we watch it together?
Yeah, you showed me Locke last
year.
We
did watch it.
We did.
We did watch it. C6. I'm so happy we watched it and we convinced you to watch it. C6.
It was a magical night.
C6. if C6. It's quite a niche film. It's not very well known in the grand scheme, you know, against Bane and Venom.
That's their ship name.
So
#Venom.
Yeah. So against Bane and Venom, this isn't a film that, you know, many people have seen. So I'd advise anybody listening to give it a watch if they like kind of smaller, low budget films with Tom Hardy with a sort of Welsh accent going C6. C6 drink every time he says C6.
I think the key word there is sort of Welsh accent, because it's an interesting accent. We love Tom Hardy, but what do you think of his accent
Someone
game
who lives
in
in Wales? In general, I've never really had much of an issue with his accents. Well, he doesn't really do accents, he does voices, and I think there's a difference. I think the Bane voice is amazing, and it was such a smart choice in a way that a voice, all the voice tells you is his intelligence, and to portray just how smart a character can be with a voice is something quite genius, and it gives him another dimension than just I'm big and I break stuff. To give him that kind of, you know, I talk sort of Ian McKellen, you know, weird through some sort of audio software. You know, it works. I think it works. But I have to say, as someone who lives in Wales, I've yet to meet someone with an Ivan Locke accent. Maybe that's because I'm not in the right part of Wales. Maybe that's because it doesn't exist. Who knows?
Who knows? I sense it might be the latter, but who knows? Indeed. There is another
I love
voice.
Tom Hardy, so I don't care.
There is another voice that may come up later on, depending on this list. I'm sure it probably
Shalom!
will. That's the one. That's
Offer!
What I love is that your impression somehow
face.
sounds more realistic than the actual voice from that one clip I've seen.
Offer!
it's so cartoonishly Arthur. Oh, shalom, Arthur. It's like, Jesus
Let's go
Christ.
into it. Our next character is
Yes.
Alfie Solomons from Peaky Blinders.
Oh wow, what a
First,
segue.
I believe, TV show entry. Yeah, I know. He's literally next on the list, which is a fantastic segue. It's almost as if I planned this, but I didn't. So every now and then I keep looking at the wild card and it makes me laugh. You're going to be so happy with the wild card.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so for now, Alfie Solomons is a character on Peaky Blinders, which is a TV show about gangsters in Birmingham. I think it's a really good show. I think it's an immensely well-written show. I don't know what my favourite series is either, because I've watched the entire show a couple of times, and each time I write it, a different season is my favourite, and a different season is my least favourite. There's something amazing about season 1 in sort of it's a little bit more kind of simplistic and a little bit more straightforward, but the characters are so well realised, so which is why I enjoy that season. And it's just as the seasons progress, they just introduce more stuff and more craziness, and all the better for it. I think it's quite a strong, solid show. There's an element of sort of adultness in the sense that it's kind of very mature. You know, it gets quite political, especially with Russia in the early 1900s, and then the rise of fascism in the UK. So it's quite kind of interesting and intelligent sort of historically, but then also there's lots of chaos and there's lots of fighting and there's lots of craziness and great acting.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of it, and one of my favourite characters in it is Tom Hardy's character, Alfie.
I have seen precisely one episode of Peaky Blinders, the one that you showed me, and it was the first episode, which does not feature our boy Tom Hardy, but I have seen multiple clips of...
Yeah, because I sat you down and showed you the clip of Tom Hardy going, "Shalom," because I constantly quoted it, and I love it. Arthur!
It's
I'm going to listen to these back, and these impressions are going to be...
I think...
god-awful.
Now, the voice alone here may not seem like enough, but... is it at such a strange, cartoonishly high frequency that it could be used to exploit Venom's weakness of sound? Could this be the play?
That's a very good question. Quite possibly. I think... yeah. I'm thinking, like, if he gets bitten, or if he's put into an amount of pain and he's... it's gonna reach a frequency that might be quite... distressing for Venom.
Oh, like the shriek of a banshee. Wow. What other abilities would you say he can bring to this fight as a fan of the character?
Oh, he chats shit a lot, because the one thing that goes really well with his voice is the dialogue he gets, and it's how Tom Hardy delivers it. Tom Hardy's a great actor. Which is why we're doing him in as our first episode. But just the sort of wittiness, the sort of, I don't fucking care, you fucking bloody... it's his... He doesn't just swear and say fuck all the time. But he's got a lot of... I don't know, he hits people, his opposition with a lot of wit, with a lot of... they get roasted, basically. He'd make an amazing rapper. He'd make an amazing rapper.
Interesting.
I think he could spit bars.
Okay.
I also think he's got a stat. He's quite big. He's got the Tom Hardy bulk. He's quite confident. He's quite powerful. Now I don't think we can allow this into our great fight, but he can. He's quite powerful in a powerful position, so he could probably hire mercenaries with Tommy guns to probably burst in and gun everyone down. But I don't think we can allow that in the battle. It's just got to be him.
I'm not so sure, because, I think the rules of the... Although, I do think each player gets a special move, so if he wants to use that as a special move, for one time only, he can call in...
Gets a mercenary.
Exactly.
Possibly. We'll explore it deeper later. But he also... He's a tricky person. That's what I like about him. He's tricky, he's witty, he's sharp. He has guns concealed, over his big coats. He has a cane that he smashes people's heads in.
Okay.
He's not afraid of violence. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve. But will that be enough to, when you come up against Bane and Venom, we'll have to see.
The roasting alone might be enough, because anyone who has seen it Chapter 2 will know that roasting can kill even the most powerful of godlike beings.
That is true.
You can roast a killer clown to death, so maybe that's all he needs.
True. That is true. On to our next fighter.
Who could it be?
Now, we've had an abundance of a range of characters of Tom Hardy's career. I think there is no greater career choice Tom Hardy has ever made than being on CBeebies Bedtime Stories.
Yes, the best Tom Hardy role.
Entering the battlefield, Tom Hardy from CBeebies Bedtime Stories. And before we make jokes, before we hypothesize the most hilarious of scenarios where this guy reading children's stories gets brutally murdered by a Jewish man in Birmingham and Bane and Venom, I actually think he's really good.
Yeah, he's got a very...
I listen to him. It's very strange because he is an actor who's very well known for being very kind of mature and very violent in his roles. And he has that very intimidating look about him when he, for his characters. So when he sits down, telling all the kids to get tucked in, get into bed, tuck her up for the night. It's quite bizarre. And
with his little cardigan.
With his little cardigan, it's quite disorientating in a way that could prove vital in this fight to the death.
Well, as we know from stalking his Wikipedia page, he has 3 children, so I believe he's had the practice, and
he's got experience.
I think we
the Gruffalo has never sounded better.
I don't think we should underestimate him, because I think his, not even just in a disorientating way, I think his voice is so soothing, so calming, that he may be able to simply put the other fighters to sleep by reading them a tale of a tiger who came to tea.
But let me ask you this. Will Eddie Brock murder a man sitting on a park bench reading bedtime stories? Could he do that?
I'm not sure he could.
I
don't know. I think we might have our most powerful fighter if he could just switch everyone off, like by reading them a few tales, a few tales here and there. I think,
and no one expects it.
Exactly.
He's got the element of surprise. Everything's in his favour when you think about it.
And then when they're all asleep, when they're all tucked up, the Tom Hardy you know and love comes out. He just quietly breaks their necks one by one, and then calmly walks off.
No, I think he reads them these children's stories, these moral messages, and learning the error of their ways in such a heartbreaking fashion may drive them to some sort of kind of self-destruction.
It could.
They're going to be throwing themselves off a cliff with guilt and shame.
Would Mr. Shalom, would he be turned if he's such a ruthless gangster? Could he be turned?
This is something that I don't know. I do not know. That could go either way. That's why I'm so thrilled about this concept. Who would win in a fight?
It's what you want to know.
The Jewish gangster from Peaky Blinders, living in 1900s London or Birmingham or wherever he's from. I can't remember. Or modern day, 21st century bedtime story reader. It's a thriller.
What other podcast do you get this on? None.
I don't know.
None.
We probably shouldn't hype ourselves up.
We shouldn't,
no,
but we're
the best.
This is where, the day before we release our first episode, some other bugger comes along and does the exact same concept, and then instantly blows us out.
I've been worried about that with my plays. You work on a play for like 7 months about a really niche idea, and in any one of those days, someone could just go, "Yep, done it," and that's 7 months down the drain. So it's quite scary.
Yeah, the life of an artist, folks. Yeah, it's tough. The amount of brilliant ideas I've had for Doctor Who stories, and then Big Finish comes along and takes it. If you're listening, Big Finish, which you're not, but if you ever do one day, please, I've got great stories.
40 minutes into our recording, And he's already bringing up Doctor Who. Actually, to be fair, I thought you'd have brought it up a lot sooner.
I mean, yeah, if Tom Hardy was in Doctor Who, we would have, but he's not, so it's not the time or the place.
Do you know what he has been in, though? He's been in the film Bronson.
Oh.
As Charlie Bronson, who is our next competitor, who is another interesting one. And I thought it was a really fun film, and I'd recommend watching it. It's basically Charlie Bronson. I can't remember too much, but in the I don't know what decade it was, but sort of, post-war 60s, 70s, 80s. I don't know, to be honest. 90s maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not very good. I probably should have researched that. Anyway, Charlie Bronson is a man who's he was a very violent man who just, you get the sense that he just likes violence. And as you can imagine, when somebody likes violence in our society, it's probably going to end with them having a long stint in jail. I think he's murdered a couple of people. In the film, I think he murders someone in the prison.
Oh.
So he's a violent guy. A nice guy, though. He seems like a lovely gentleman. I will say this, in case, for some reason, our only viewer for this podcast
is Charles Bronson.
This guy who's incarcerated in prison. Lovely man. Please do not snap me.
I mean, on the serious note, isn't there a thing where he's sent out lots of letters to people and is actually quite a reformed, nice dude these days? Isn't that? I swear that's actually a thing.
I'm not sure. I know he was quite friendly with Tom Hardy actually, and they actually had quite a good relationship where they just sort of talked to each other a lot, and it was.
You know what it is?
This is a weird thing about Charlie Bronson.
You know what it is? He went in wearing his little cardigan. He took out a bedtime story and he started reading it. And he made Charles Bronson rethink his whole life.
Shut the fuck up, you cunt! Shut it! But the really interesting thing with Charlie Bronson is you almost get this sense in the film. I haven't researched him that much, but I've seen the film. That he does sort of have a heart in a sense, and he's got a very human sort of a little bit of an emotional side, and the way Tom Hardy talks about him, he's quite a caring to him, is so mind-boggling, considering that he's been so violent.
Yeah,
and it's quite interesting. What I would say though, and what I was thinking of when I made this list, is I feel that he's sort of the closest thing to a real-life Bane. And I'm probably just saying that because Tom Hardy played him. Actually, that's probably the only reason why I'm saying it. Actually, yeah, that's probably the only reason, to be honest, because I was like, they look the same.
Yeah, I'm going to say, if I was going to compare him to another character, I'd have compared him to Mr. Shalom from Peaky Blinders, the whole sort of gangster, bit ruthless thing.
He was never, as far as I'm aware, he was never part of an organisation, or he was never the head of his own little gang. He was just a guy, who went to pubs, in working class areas at the time and just got into fights and just enjoyed kicking the shit out of people.
I guess I see the comparison now.
And police.
There is that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where Bane goes to a local boozer and says, "I want 3 pints of cider, please." And then someone starts on him.
That's true. I think it's just the kind of the raw brutality. The what connects them is that just their weapons are their sort of fists, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I would say, I don't know. I imagine Bane would maybe win, is the stronger of the two. Completely, just my thought. However, Charles Bronson, sort of has this nature about him where he just doesn't seem to get, he's still fighting people even when 5 people are grabbing hold of him and grab each of his limbs. He doesn't give up. He fights till the bitter end, and he's got that very predatory nature about him, which is going to make him a very fierce competitor.
Interesting. Could he take Bane, do you think, though? If he's the closest comparison, could Charlie Bronson overcome the might of Bane?
I reckon it's a close fight, I reckon Bane, with the control and, the sort of kind of... This is the thing, I think Bane's more controlling and, can use his skills to the best of their ability. But Charles Bronson's an animal. So I think it boils down to sort of brains versus brawn, really. And that's the age-old question, which is better?
Indeed.
One we'll answer through Tom Hardy Fightography. From the Jazz Lasagna podcast.
Hey, got to get those plugs in. Remind everyone who they're listening to.
Yeah, let's plug our own podcast on our own podcast.
That's a genius business model. Why has no one else done that before?
Because the people who don't listen, who listen to this podcast, won't be listening to this podcast.
But will they be listening to next
Anyway.
week? That's the question.
That's true. Moving on to our next competitor.
Yes. Where are we on the list
Shall
now?
I say 7?
Okay.
Our next competitor or next competitors.
Oh.
I've made a very bold choice.
Oh,
you can rule against me if you want.
I think I know what you've done here.
But
I was thinking about this. Yeah.
Ronnie and Reggie Gray as a sort of tag team duo entering at number 7. And I wondered how we wanted to play this. We could either play it as they're just sort of... Because they're not... I guess they have guns, but they never did the dirty work themselves, so to say. So they got knuckle dusters and hammers and stuff. But, coming up against Bane and even Bronson to an extent, they're coming up against some very vicious characters. CBeebies Bedtime Stories, Tom Hardy. So... do we let them fight sort of side by side, back to back, or do we have this sort of weird tag team system where one of them has to stand to the side and sort of watch the chaos ensue, and can only enter when the other holds their hand out and tags the other one in?
There is
I quite like the idea of the tag team. I think it's quite funny.
Yeah, that's probably their best shot. I think there is a third option where, by whatever means they are transported to this location, there is some hideous The Fly style accident where they get fused into a single being joined at the hip, which I
like this. One head sort of growing out the other's neck.
Yeah, exactly.
3 arms, one with a pint of beer, one with a knuckle duster, and one with a hammer, and they're just sort of windmill while drinking the pint.
Some hideous Cronenberg Kramer monster.
Their suit torn, but not completely. I like it. I like this, Dan. I like it a lot.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's what we go with. I like the tag system, but I thought I'd throw it in there. And so there we go.
So bit of a brief bio. Ronnie and Reggie Gray, again, another kind of historical kind of criminal figure, I guess, in post-war British crime. Gangsters, and they are sort of I guess the opposite to kind of Charlie Bronson in the sense that they're the guys at the very top. They do very little of the dirty work, and actually what got them convicted in the end was doing the dirty work, sort of. Can you check that? Whereas you've got Bronson, who's just sort of on his own terms, walking around getting into fights. You've got Ronnie and Reggie Gray, who are just have their gang, have their group, and are controlling large parts of London, really.
Interesting. Now, could the Kramers recruit Mr. Bronson? If that's their power dynamic, could they be able to recruit him temporarily and then eventually have to turn on him, or he turns on them?
Part of me wonders, and I'm probably going to embarrass myself quite largely, because I really don't know when Charlie Bronson was kind of popular. Not popular, but when he was around, and when Ronnie and Reggie Gray were around, and if there was some crossover, I imagine they maybe coexisted in a similar time.
Possibly. The organised crime cinematic universe. Or the OCCU.
I think, I don't know, that's an interesting one. But I don't know, I think Charles Bronson is someone who would, I don't know, I don't think he can be won over by money. I think he just sort of fights. But maybe he can, maybe, this is the thing, he may not be won over by money, but maybe he relates to them and respects them and approaches them with a kindness. So, either or, really. Quite possibly.
Interesting. I guess it's going to come down to the arena.
We'll have to find out.
Indeed.
Later in this episode. Next up, we have a character called Farrier. Or Farrier.
Ooh.
Who is the pilot from Dunkirk.
Hey, I have seen this. I just had no idea what it was called. He was Tom Hardy in a plane to me.
No, I didn't know his name. Yeah, Tom Hardy in a plane. So yeah, and to be honest, there's sort of one sole reason. Because now we have a man flying around in a plane.
He does indeed spend the entire film, more or less, in the in that plane. So yeah,
it's going to be an interesting one. There's just so much chaos. There's so much. There's cars. There's planes.
Plane versus car.
Super villains. There's a man reading bedtime stories. There's a giant black monster.
Now, I can't remember. I'm sure it probably does. His plane's got guns, right? In that film.
I'm pretty confident it does. It would be a pretty shit warplane if there was any form of weaponry.
I'm just because it's meant
just flying around listlessly as, you know, the Germans attack Dunkirk.
I'm guessing because it's like a rescue op, but yeah, like there's not much you can do in a plane other than shoot people or drop bombs. Does it have bombs? We should probably know this.
We probably imagine doing research for this podcast. Who'd have thought? I don't think, as far as I'm aware, in the film he didn't have bombs because he wasn't a bomber plane, but I think he had guns because he was more of a kind of fighter plane.
Yeah, so he has his guns. He doesn't have any bombs, but he has his guns in his plane. I think he's got a big advantage here, just because no one else can actually touch him.
He does have a big advantage, and that's going to be vital later in the episode. What I would counter that with is, in the film, he does crash the plane and presumably is taken away to be murdered by the Nazis. And you've got to think, if an army of Nazis can defeat him, can Venom? Who wins in a fight, Venom or an army of Nazis?
Well, I think Venom just bites their heads
off.
off.
On the Jazz Lasagna
one by one
podcast. Quite true.
I think
we want to see a Venom film where he gets transported to the 1940s Germany.
I mean, the current trajectory they're on, I would not put it past them. Venom 4, Venom goes to kill Hitler. Venom. I think the question here is
killing Hitler.
At what point is what's he called? Lothario? Fario. At what point is he transported? I was going to say,
Italian
famous lover.
Fario.
At what point is he transported to this arena? Because if it's towards the end of the film where he's got like no fuel, he's instantly going to dive bomb and crash, and then he's done for.
I think we've got to give him some fuel.
Yeah.
How about thing is
half a tank?
Half
a tank of fuel.
Half a tank. Yeah, that seems fair. So he's going to be up there for quite a while, but not forever. So he needs to get the job done and get it done quickly.
Indeed.
Another interesting case we have going into this is the character of Eames. I think that's how you pronounce it. In Inception.
Oh. Now, I've not seen Inception. Bit of a hot take. Well, not a hot take, it's just something I haven't seen. I've not actually seen Inception, so tell me.
This is the thing. Inception. Oh, I mean, I'm sure, because there have been lots of parodies of it since. But it's all about sort of a group of thieves who sort of want to break into somebody's dreams in order to get some, I can't quite remember, but get some sort of document or important information that can, make them achieve their goal of whatever that is. What I'd say, because I've talked to a lot of people about it, and a lot of people don't really like it, or a lot of people I've talked to haven't been the biggest fan of it. And I wasn't the biggest fan of it when I first watched it a good few years ago, but I watched it back recently, probably I think last year. And when you kind of think of it as a heist film, and you kind of go into it and being like, this is a heist film, I think it's probably the best heist film ever made.
Ooh.
And granted, there's not many. There's about Ocean's 11, and that's about it. But it is, it's a group of people getting together. They've all got different skills, a set of different skills. And instead of breaking into a bank vault at this fancy gala, they're breaking into someone's mind to steal, something quite important. So I think it definitely constitutes as a heist film, and I think it's done in a really original, interesting way. Quite well acted. Maybe the characters aren't as three-dimensional as possible. I think that can be a bit of a flaw in Christopher Nolan's writing sometimes.
Is there a case of the Nolan wife where they have no function except to be the wife, or whatever their role is in the story?
Well, spoilers. I mean, you find this out pretty straight away. But Leonardo DiCaprio's wife is dead, and she only sort of appears in the film as a sort of dream or a mirage. So, yes,
peak Nolan wife, fantastic.
But it's got Ellen Page, now Elliot Page.
Okay.
And I had a crush on them when I was younger, so I think that was another reason why I kind of wanted to watch this film as well.
Oh.
And they're good in that. So, I don't know, I'd give it a watch.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out.
Definitely give it a watch.
It's definitely on my list.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Back to Tom Hardy and back to this podcast rather than just my review of Inception.
Indeed. What powers does he possess?
One of the interesting things. Well, this is the thing, and this is something we've got to dispute. So, when you're in a dream, as one can in a dream, you can just sort of summon things. So there's a funny moment where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in it, and he's shooting at some bad guy. He sort of spawns a machine gun in his hand and starts shooting at some bad guys because, you can do anything in a dream. And Tom Hardy's character, who's quite prim and proper, sort of walks up to him and goes, "You have to think bigger, darling," and then just sort of lifts into shot this sort of rocket launcher and fires it at these villains. So I'm thinking, it's a grenade launcher.
I'm
so
sold.
I think if he's in a dream, he basically has the ability to summon anything and use it as a weapon.
Okay.
The problem is, I imagine this big fight isn't going to happen in a dream.
Now, I've been thinking about this as you've been talking. I think there's a natural crossover here between two of our fighters. I think Bedtime Story Tom Hardy comes in. He can put everyone into a dream state, and then Dream Inception Tom Hardy either appears in the dreams or jumps into their dreams, and that's when he comes into his own.
Well, I think maybe CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy doesn't consider this as a threat. He thinks he's won, but then they're all in the dreams. He's really giving an advantage to Eames. Really, he's summoning weaponry left, right, and centre. So I think that could be a problem for CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy.
Oh yeah.
What I do quite like the notion of, if these guys do get knocked unconscious or they do fall asleep, he can appear with sort of weaponry and just deck him.
So he's basically Freddy Krueger.
Basically, yeah. Basically, yeah. But the thing is, unless that happens, he's just a guy running around a jungle. Now, from what I remember, in the real world, there's a chase scene. I don't think he's really involved in it, but maybe he's good at parkour. But that's about it. That's about as good as it gets. So I like the idea that he's just some guy running around aimlessly, trying to avoid certain death.
Oh, maybe that's his power. Maybe he can outrun his competitors for long enough that they get so tired they fall asleep, and then he's straight in there.
Maybe. So, on to number 10 of our Tom Hardy characters.
10 of 10.
We have 10 of 10. We have, and this was a tricky one, Max from Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, okay. Now, is he gifted a vehicle?
Another bigger vehicle. I think Yeah, because for the majority of the film, he is also in a vehicle. He's in a giant truck.
Right. Okay.
So I think we've got to add that to the mix as well.
I think you have to, really, because Mad Max is famous for its vehicles.
Yes. I watched this film a fair few years ago, when it was, like, the year it was released, really. And I cannot remember a single thing that happens in the... You know, I remember little bits and I remember visuals for sure. But he's in a... All I can say is he's in a truck with wives, with brides, with women, who one of them I think is pregnant. So... And he's got sort of like a mask around his face.
Of course.
Sort of kind of like chain mask thing. A little bit Hannibal Lecter.
Of course, Tom Hardy must wear a mask in most of his films.
Now, here's the thing. In this fight, are Ivan Locke and Max from Mad Max Fury Road allowed to leave their vehicles?
I don't think they are. I think they are bound.
Well,
It is their gift and their curse. They are bound in their vehicles.
sure. Why not? So in that case, I would say if Mad Max isn't allowed to leave his vehicle, he also has to have 3, 4, 5 brides in the back of his car, just sort of screaming, terrified. I mean, in the film, they are a bit more agents. They've got agency, so I think they do participate in a lot of the fight scenes. And of course, you've got Charlize Theron's character.
Okay.
But I think they're sort of excluded in this hypothetical
They
because
have
they are
to be,
competent,
really.
and this would be adding a character that is maybe we can't allow this character to be involved in the Tom Hardy fight. I'm gonna sound very hypocritical.
They have been
when I say my wild card.
Oh, okay.
But I think you have Tom Hardy in a massive ass truck, breathing fire, and being loud and bombacious, if that's a word. And just in the back, there's lots of screaming pregnant women.
Wow. I think so they are. In what manner are they incapacitated for this fight? Are they simply unable to move? Are they unconscious? Because if they are,
I don't think they're allowed. In our world, I don't think they're allowed to participate. They are merely just screaming women in the back of the truck. So in the film, however, they do have a lot more agency and they do actually get a bit more involved. But not in this battle. This is a Tom Hardy only battle.
The stipulations of war dictate they cannot, even if they wish to, take part. So they are trapped. I think this could be a disadvantage if they're screaming. That's going to be quite annoying for Mad Max driving.
I just think it's a funny image over anything.
It is also very funny.
This massive chaotic battle with 10 people who look exactly the same, and these women, just pregnant women, just screaming.
Oh my god,
the chaos!
I think Locke's advantage is gone straight away. I don't think he's lasting long. We'll find out, but I don't think he's lasting long into this fight.
Well, it's how he uses his vehicle, I suppose.
Oh.
Now,
so yes,
we have our 10 characters. We have Bane, Venom, Ivan Locke, Alfie Solomons, CBB's Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy, Charles Bronson, Ronnie and Reggie Cray, Farrier from Dunkirk, Eames from Inception, and Max from Mad Max Fury Road. That is our collection of warriors who will be fighting to the death. However,
the greatest of roles, yes. Who is this wild card? I'm excited.
We have a wild card, and there are a lot of. The thing about Tom Hardy, he's been in a lot of projects. He's been in Taboo. He's played Al Capone. He's played Bill Sikes on the stage. He was in the film Warrior, which is a really good film. He also had a cameo in The Matrix Resurrection.
Oh,
That's not who I'm selecting.
Okay,
but supposedly he's had a cameo, a background role in the new Matrix, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I couldn't find an image of it online, but apparently is a thing.
He had a cameo in Star Wars too, didn't he? He was a stormtrooper, I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've thought long and hard about this, and this is where I did do a lot of research. Now, Tom Hardy has been in a lot of films where another very important man to modern cinema has also been a part.
Oh, okay.
None other then Hans Zimmer.
Oh!
I haven't selected Hans Zimmer to join this battle, but this led me down quite an interesting road.
Oh.
So Hans Zimmer, of course, composed The Dark Knight.
He did.
And Inception, and basically any other Christopher Nolan film.
Mm.
But he's been in those films that starred Tom Hardy.
Mm.
Now, I believe Inception came out in 2010.
Right.
Hans Zimmer composed that film. Do you know what the film directly after was that he composed?
Oh, I don't know.
He composed... Well, obviously, the next film he composed... What do we think?
I don't know, because Hans Zimmer... do you know one of the first things he did compose? Because this might be an interesting reverse fact.
Go on.
He was on the piano or on the keyboard for the charity single Doctor in Distress, released in 1986, I think. By
This is a Doctor Who.
It is a Doctor Who thing. When Doctor Who was taken off the air for a year, Colin Baker and John Nathan Turner got some of their pals together to release the infamous Doctor in Distress, which is famously terrible. But Hans Zimmer was on the keyboard for that very song, which is not the start you want to your career, but there we go. So, what could his next project be? Because if he's gone from Doctor in Distress to Inception...
his next project directly after Inception?
2010. What's coming out in 2010? It was released in 2010. I
believe so, yes.
The Garfield
you can't
movie.
Google it.
No idea. I'm not Googling it. I'm just thinking, the Garfield movie. Why not?
So, you're not far off.
Oh my god.
The next film Hans Zimmer composed was hit classic Megamind.
Oh! No
so
way.
Megamind is joining
Yeah!
the fight to the death with all these Tom Hardys.
Oh my god.
Megamind, of course, being the blue forehead alien man from the film Megamind.
Now this is a fantastic film. Megamind is it's one of the greats.
I mean, it was fine. But I did some research. I didn't want to select somebody, a wild card, who, would just go in and beat everyone.
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't seen the film in 10 years, believe it or not. Well, 11, 12 now. So, I Googled what his superpowers were, and amazingly, there was a wiki with all of Megamind's superpowers.
Of course.
Would you like me to go through them?
Oh.
And then we can ascertain what kind of chance he has in this fight.
I'll see how many I can remember off the top of my head, because I saw it not long ago. So he's obviously he's a genius, he's a genius. He's got a load of different tech stuff that he can whip up, which includes a freeze ray, an invisible... Is it an invisible ray or an invisible car? He's got something invisible. He's got the little fish who may be able to help him out. I don't know if he's going to play a role.
Well, maybe he can have his freeze gun, although that would maybe make him too OP.
It would give him quite the edge.
I googled his superpowers.
Yeah, what's the
and it
official
said
list?
as follows.
Okay.
Superpowers looks like an alien.
Is that it?
That is it.
Oh, wow.
He looks like an alien, and he's intelligent.
Well,
that is it.
What more do you need, really? What more do you need?
So, basically, I'm assuming that he's fucked pretty quickly.
That's
especially since he's blue, and everyone, other than going, "Oh my god, what the hell is that giant black thing in Venom?" They're also going to go, "Who is that giant blue forehead guy?"
I mean, yeah,
and they're going to immediately turn on him.
If he's stripped of all his tech, then he's fucked. Yeah. Because his whole thing in that film is just whipping out gadgets. So if he can't have any of that, then yeah, he's not lasted long.
Exactly.
Oh dear. By the way, dear listener, if you heard my stomach grumble, I am hungry. I do apologise. I don't think it got picked up, but I just thought I'd clarify that for the audio. If you hear a rumbling...
I want to be even more professional and say the cat that I do not own, but is my neighbour's cat, has just walked in and is meowing quite annoyingly.
Oh.
And is trying to jump on my leg. So I did lock the door, but they opened it and started meowing. So we're just professional. We're just too professional.
Clearly, we know exactly what we're doing. We are indeed very professional, glossy, slick, know exactly what we're doing. Yeah. We've got a proper studio, of course.
Yep. Facebook Messenger call.
Yep.
Now, moving on to the exciting part of the podcast, a bit that everyone's been waiting for. All these characters.
The Smackdown.
Bane, Venom, Ivan Locke, Alfie Solomons, Tom Hardy, Bronson, Roger and Rennie Craig, Farrier, Eames, Max, and Megamind have all just randomly spawned in a land. And they have one thing in their mind.
Fight to the death.
Fight to the death.
Now,
the bell rings.
But before the fight begins, there is a brief intermission. A figure walks onto screen. There's a sugar bowl in the centre frame. Tom Hardy reaches into the sugar bowl and advertises as some sort of phone thing. I can't remember what it was for. And then he walks away, having stolen the sugar. And then the advertisement's over. We're into the fight.
Right.
Because how can you leave out the sugar stealing whatever the fuck those adverts were?
I've not seen those adverts.
Have you not? I think it was like for a phone contract thing. He did he was talking about when you get a contract with EE, the whatever rolls over to the next month. Like sugar. Or whatever he's saying. And he just nicks
Peter Capaldi.
It does sound a bit like Peter Capaldi, yeah. Damn. But yeah, it was just a random advert he did where he just nicked sugar to represent contracts being left over or some crap. But what a better place for an
considering
advert.
Including...
You what?
I suppose so. I was considering including interviewer Tom Hardy. Because he's quite a scary man to intimidate. He's quite an intimidating man to interview. He will call you out when you ask sexist questions. Rightly so. He will then just go, thank you, and just completely end the conversation.
I'll tell you what, I think there's room...
He'll eat nuts.
I think there's room for both of these Tom Hardys on the peripherals of the fight. I think sugar-stealing Tom Hardy is the sponsor for the main event. And interview Tom Hardy, he's there afterwards or before or whatever to interview all of the gladiators. He does them one by one.
Very possible. Very possible.
But we're not here for that.
So, no. The bell rings.
Ding ding.
Or whatever. The sound clacks on. The cannon fires. What happens? They all... Now, if we kind of look at this in sort of kind of a Hunger Games sort of style, we can have people who run and people who just get immediately into the battle. Instantly... I think Ivan Locke is driving away.
I think he is. I think he's off. He's on the phone. He's talking about concrete. He's like, I need concrete quickly. Get me some C6.
He's in a rush. I think... I mean, as much as I love him as a wild card, I sort of like the idea of Megamind immediately dying.
I think what happens, Locke is panicked by what he sees. He goes to drive off. He sees Megamind, and then, startled by Megamind, he swerves his car straight into him. He's flattened. Megamind's out of the picture.
I think he sort of splats him on like the windscreen, and he uses the wipers as sort of like washing away like a fly.
Oh, God. And just like that, Megamind is dead.
I also think Bane, Venom, I think Alfie is going to be a little bit reserved. I think he's going to be hiding behind a shrub, but I think immediately Bane and Venom are going after people, and I think Bronson is immediately going into battle. And I think the problem with Bronson is he's so feisty, so energetic, so ready for a fight. I feel he walks straight on into a collision with either Bane or Venom, and just has the shit kicked out of him.
See, I think Venom might go for a runner as well, because whilst being quite powerful, a lot of what he does throughout those films is go, oh shit, and then run off. So
that's very true.
I think
so
Venom...
we've got Venom running.
Yeah.
Ivan Locke runs, killing Megamind in doing so. I think we've got Bane and Bronson then just having a brawl.
I think they go
and
for it.
It comes down to brains or brawn.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to be controversial, but I think Bane or Bronson, as much as Bronson may put up a fight, I think Bane immediately starts with the upper hand. There's right hooks, left hooks, uppercuts, jabs. I think, Bane's got an MO, and he's monologuing the whole time, but I don't think that would, I don't think that really stops him, to be honest.
No, I think it's just further fuel to the fire. He's just, as he's monologuing, Bronson's getting pissed, he's throwing in wild haymakers, they're all not connecting, because Bane he dodges them. And then Bane, he delivers a few killing blows. Does he go straight for the backbreaker?
And I think, in front of everyone, I think he goes for the backbreaker, monologuing this whole time.
Victory has defeated
you. And he immediately goes for the backbreaker. And I think he's snapping Bronson's back in half.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Bronson...
And I think, as much as one of the better fighters on this card, I think Bronson is going to be out second.
His lack of strategy is his downfall, and the first Hardy to fall has fallen.
Now, interestingly, at the same time, Farrier in his Dunkirk plane and Max from Mad Max Fury Road are driving around, and I feel they're not going to be running. They're going to be going straight into battle.
Yeah, so I think Farrier, he comes in with a sweeping... he's using his guns. Mad Max...
Machine gun fire.
Whatever Mad Max does, he's got fire blowing out of his car, hasn't he? He's probably using that to his advantage. Mm-hmm. Oh no, you know what I just remembered? Venom has another weakness to sound. Fire. That's also one of Venom's weaknesses. He could be in trouble here.
Do you think the large kind of high-pitched tone from the plane as well is just going to make Venom hide into Eddie Brock's body?
He's not going to like it, no. I think Venom's in real trouble.
I think what happens is Venom transforms into Eddie Brock, who then just starts running.
I think he does, yeah. I think he's just desperate to get out there.
Because he's running, I don't think he's in any immediate peril, because I think both Ferrier and Max are going for the centre, are actually going for Bane, really. So I think... we've got... It's quite interesting here, because we've got a truck. Bane has just snapped Bronson's back, killing him, sadly. And then you have a fighter pilot going in on Bane, and you have a truck marching in on Bane.
Yeah.
They're all closing in on him. He's looking around, assessing. He can see them coming. There's a good few seconds where he can see them coming. But what can Bane do to prevent a fighter plane and a giant truck breathing fire from killing him?
I don't know.
Is it a simple roll? Does he get splattered?
I think, he's drawn too much attention to himself by doing his grandstanding. His monologuing and his grandstanding has defeated him. What you could say is victory has defeated him.
has defeated him. So another one, Bane gets splattered by Max.
I think
he gets a fistful of bullets penetrating him.
I think Farrier...
And then he gets splattered, and then the windshield wipers squashed.
Oh my god, it's brutal. I think what happens is Farrier takes him out with the guns, and then does a little quip directly into the camera, Catwoman and Hathaway style, and then flies off. And then, Mad Max goes over the corpse, or his bleeding out body, just turns into mincemeat. It's just mincemeat. It's just, you hate to see it.
Meanwhile, sort of on the edge of the kind of main battle area where all this carnage is ensuing, I think you've got Ronnie and Reggie Cray, you've got CBB's Bedtime Stories, Tom Hardy, Alfie Solomons, very Eames from Inception, very fierce adversaries, but I think all of them smart enough to sort of not want to engage in the back-breaking, truck-splashing phenomenon in the centre.
Yeah, I think
Eames, knowing he has little to no power, also runs. He's a runner.
Now, does he seek out Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy? Does he propose an alliance between them?
Interesting. I mean, Eames, from what I remember, has a delicacy about him, and I think it can be quite approachable to a CB's Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy. So do you think they form some form of alliance?
I think they strike up an early alliance, yeah.
I think the fear in CB's Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy, mixed with the planning intuition of Eames, allows them to form some kind of alliance.
I think it does.
Now my question is... there must be a couple of minutes period where they devise this plan. Now, who can they possibly target, or who can they kind of sneak up on? Is there anybody who's vulnerable?
Now, I think the Kramer Cronenberg monster is going to be pretty difficult to tame, because you've got two heads at once. That's going to be tricky.
That's true. That's going to be scary. I don't think they'll want to approach human zombified Ronnie and Reggie Cray.
They're going to want to start off
for
small. Yeah. I think...
Do they go for an Alfie Solomons?
I think they have to, because they can't go for the vehicles. They can't attempt to, unless they can get hold of some sort of communication device to make contact with Tom Hardy in the plane. I don't think they can actually use their powers against him. So yeah, they're going to have to go for Alfie Solomon.
Now the interesting thing here, I would say, is... presumably for this plan, CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy has to approach Alfie Solomons. I fear in a situation where there's lots of violence occurring, Alfie Solomons isn't going to wait for an explanation, to be honest. I think he's going to unleash some form of... He's not going to listen to anybody. He's going to go for people. So I think he's using his cane, and he maybe begins beating the shit out of CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy.
Oh no, not on his little cardigan.
But
I think what now do these characters have in the style of the traditional fighting game? Do our characters here have a special move they can pull off? Because can Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy utilise the little
talk his way out?
The little jingle they have before the bedtime story starts, like a little soothing jingle that quietens Alfie Solomon's mind, and then he appears on his beanbag, and
I think there could be a moment where Alfie Solomon's sort of retract or holds back, or there's a moment where he sort of holds back for a moment and listens to what he has to say, because it happens a couple of times in the show. Where, Tommy's got him against the rope. I feel, CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy uses the jingle to maybe distract him. Now, what I would say, if there were two characters who were very similar to one another, it would be Ivan Locke and CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy. Now, if he saw a vulnerable man lying on the floor and some kind of big, dressed up gangster with a weapon in his hand, ready to batter CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy, would he be inclined to intervene? Does Alfie Solomons get splattered by Ivan Locke's car?
Is Ivan Locke that selfless? Because he doesn't strike me, that film, as someone who'd necessarily go out of their way to save someone's life if his own life was at risk.
That is true.
I'm not sure.
That is true.
But
maybe Eddie Brock helps.
Eddie would help. This is true. Eddie Venom.
Maybe he hits him over the head with, because Venom being a bit of a pussy at this minute. So I think Eddie Brock hits Alfie Solomons over the back of the head with some shrubbery, with some kind of unless they're not allowed they're not allowed to pick weapons from.
No,
from
it's strictly
area.
themselves. But I do think if Venom was to see someone in distress, the lethal protector in them would emerge. He'd be like, "Oh shit, it's lethal protector time!" And then they'd jump into the fray of battle, and maybe bite off Alfie Solomon's head. It could be it for him.
I don't think it looks good for Alfie Solomons, I'll be honest. I think maybe Venom, in a spur of the moment freak out decision, smacks him with his big venom arm, hurling him into the air. Alfie Solomons lands, hat off, hitting his head off the floor.
Oh.
Unconscious. The perfect moment for Eames from Inception to strike. And although it may not have gone as smoothly as they planned,
the plan still.
Alfie Solomons is now unconscious, and Eames can enter his head.
And then, sure enough, he hears, 1, 2, Eames is coming for you.
You'll have to think a little bigger, darling. And I think in the dream, I think it sort of becomes sort of like a shootout. And Alfie Solomon sort of famously is known to sort of, pull the pistol from under the coat.
Mm.
But I also think Eames has a rocket launcher. So, although I would believe Alfie Solomons shoots Eames, which would then in turn just wake him up, I also think Alfie Solomons is blown up by a bazooka.
I think so, especially if Eames is waiting. If Eames knows it's going to happen, then he can just straight away pull out a rocket launcher, whereas Alfie has got to have time to wait, what's happened? Oh, I'm in a dream. So I think those few seconds, yeah, Alfie's done for, I think.
So I think, I can't remember if they die in a dream, if they die in real life. I can't remember. But let's just say they do.
They do. They've got to.
So I think Alfie Solomons is gone. He's a goner. But I also think Eames is kind of wounded quite heavily.
Okay.
Not fatally, but he's taken a shot to the abdomen.
Okay.
So he's now a little bit injured. He's weakened.
He's wounded. Not down, not out, but it's not looking good. That's going to be a problem later down the line.
What do we think Ronnie and Reggie Cray are doing at this moment?
So the Kramer-Cronenberg hybrid monster, I think. Now, are they distressed by the fact they fused into one singular being, or do they just roll with it? I'm like, oh, cool. I guess we're more...
Do they turn the gun on themselves? Is it...
Kill me!
Do they sort of look in the reflection of Ivan Locke's wing mirror and see what they've... I don't think they know what they've become yet.
No, I don't. I think.
So I think a lot of their journey at the minute is processing what has happened to them.
Now the question is: Are circling Ivan Locke, is he equally distressed as he was when he saw Megamind by seeing this Cronenberg Kramer and drives his car straight towards him? Does he hit them? Does he swerve? I think Ivan Locke is becoming a bit of a dark horse, just knocking out the competition one by one.
I think Ivan Locke squashes Roger and Rennie Cray as they're having some kind of crisis of what the hell am I? They just get absolutely plummeted. Smack. And again, the wipers wash them away.
Oh my god. Oh, he's got a very dirty windscreen. This is going to be a problem in a minute.
It is. Maybe he can't see. There's been so much gunk on his screen that he's now driving blind.
Oh, he's in trouble. Does he have to start reversing or something, or is he just fully blind? Because either way, it's not good.
I think he's still going. I think he's still driving.
I mean, he is trying to get to one destination that entire film. So yeah, I think the drive to get to wherever he's going, it just keeps him ploughing forward. Yeah, even though he can't see, he's just driving.
Now, what I pitch to you is he can't see.
Mm.
Maybe at some point he is in line with the truck from Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh no!
And they collide head on.
Oh dear. Now,
potentially,
there should be a sure given conclusion, but I propose that Ivan Locke, he has his own special move, you see. Now, he spends a lot of the film talking about C6 and C3, but you know what else you can have? C4. That's right, he brings out explosives. He somehow conjured them up with his knowledge of C's and numbers, and they're in the car. Now, whether or not he has time to use them, or whether or not they're just set off by the crash, I don't know. What are you feeling?
Well, let me pitch this to you. Let me pitch this scenario. So, Ivan Locke has just splattered Roger and Rennie Cray, blinding him. Now, they may not be dead. They've only been hit by, a car. There is a potential of survival there.
Okay.
He has then gone head first into a truck. And I don't know if it's it's quite a big truck. But would it incapacitate both Ivan Locke and Max from Mad Max Fury Road? So you have two incapacitated car drivers. You have Ronnie and Reggie Cray very fatally injured by all the wreckage of the car and the truck. Being able to see his reflection finally in the shiny metal wreckage, seeing how hideously disfigured he is, having an even bigger crisis. To which point, Tom Hardy, CBeebies Bedtime Stories, comes in with a little lullaby. Now, CBeebies Bedtime Stories, Tom Hardy probably knows that the damage has been done, but maybe he can put him to sleep peacefully.
It's a mercy killing.
And thus reads Roger... exactly, it's a mercy killing. So he reads Ronnie and Reggie Cray to sleep.
I think so. I think that's it.
Meanwhile, we have... So Ronnie and Reggie Cray are gone.
I think the crash... Now, I think unless Ivan Locke uses the C4, I think he's just being obliterated and the truck carries on more or less unharmed, because it's a big fucking truck. And Ivan Locke's only got a shitty little car. So unless the C4's coming into play, he's fucked. He's just minced.
Well, I'm not sure we can give him C4, to be honest. He can try and throw C6, but it's just a bit of concrete which just sort of...
C6, C4.
Off the truck.
all right. No C4.
I hate to say it, but I think Ivan Locke gets completely eviscerated at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Ivan Locke's... He's had a good run. Ivan
Locke... He's got a 2 on his kill count. I think he is next to go.
Ivan Locke's obliterated.
So we have Venom, who's sort of yet to get into the fight. We have CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy. We have Farrier from Dunkirk still. An injured Eames. And Max from Mad Max Fury Road.
Right.
A lot of the sort of underrated characters are pulling strong here.
Yeah. Now, we have to ask, these events, they've not taken long, have they? These events...
No, this has been, a couple of minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah, so Fario, he's got a good tank of fuel still. He's doing all right. Farrier, whatever the fuck he's called.
Fario.
Dunkirk, Tom Hardy, he's got some decent amount of fuel left. He's doing all right still. He's still circling.
Yeah, he's strong.
I think these events have spurred Venom into action. The Lethal Protector's kicked in full. He's like, oh shit, we've got to do something about this, Eddie. And Eddie's like, I don't know, man, oh my god. And then Venom's like, come on, Eddie, put yourself together, you pussy. And then Eddie's like, all right.
You know what I think? I agree. And I think that Venom, seeing the devastation that Farrier is causing, goes for the plane.
He goes for the plane?
And I don't know how high... how high Venom can jump, but he seems to be able to jump fairly high.
He does have a good jump on him, and I don't know if... Because movie Venom's never used webs, has he? Or anything like webs. Because OG Venom can use webs, but this Venom could only jump.
I would say that he could. Use webs. Even though we haven't seen it, he can plausibly use webs.
I mean, he can stretch his arm, which is sort of like a web.
They're not webs. Yeah, it's sort of his arm stretched out. Really.
So either way, he's getting onto this plane. He's getting up there. Now, I think...
I think before that...
Yeah.
I think before that, the plane's coming down, having a few swoops, shooting a few machine guns. Farrier has seen this black thing coming for him, and Venom's tried a few jumps, missed maybe once or twice, and they've locked onto each other. Now, what you've got to say, Farrier shooting Venom, will it be a problem? I don't know.
I think...
Will Venom be able to dodge it? I'm sure he would.
I think Venom, even if he gets hit by the bullets, I think Venom can take the bullets. I think his biggest problem is if Farrier turns the propeller of the plane against him. That's going to cause him some issues. But then if he does, Farrier's going down. Does the plane have a propeller? I'm sure it's got
You have to remember as well. Yeah, it will do. Also, the plane emits a sound that maybe is not too discomforting for Venom, but I'm sure he won't like it. So I think...
It's precarious.
From this, he gets onto the plane. Now, the minute he's on the plane, because it's sort of an older World War II plane, maybe the weight of Venom is already bringing it down. And if it isn't, then I feel that although Venom is maybe... isn't enjoying the shrieking is causing him some pain, he's still just smashing in this plane. And I feel the plane with Venom is going down.
Yeah, I think the plane's done for at this point. I think Venom is going to be, screaming, the symbiote's not going to like it, I think, but the plane is going down. The Farrier is done for.
Now, what I would ask you, what I ask you, Dan, where is the plane landing?
Oh. Oh dear. So, the field, we've got a downed Kramer twins. Who's left? We've got Bedtime Stories.
He's dead.
He's gone. We've got the Kramers.
No, Bedtime Stories is still alive. Bedtime Stories is still alive.
But we've got the Bedtime Stories. We've got a wounded
We've got
Eames.
Venom, Bedtime Stories, Farrier, a wounded Eames, and Max from Mad Max Fury Road.
I think if they've already had a bit of a battle earlier, I think Farrier turns his plane, what he can left of it, towards the truck. Yeah, I think he goes straight for the truck. Now,
I believe so too.
Yeah, I think if Venom doesn't jump off now, he's fucked. Because sound plus that amount of fire, he's done for. So if he doesn't jump off the plane now... But I think he would. I think he's smart enough to know to jump.
I think Venom would jump. I also think Farrier would eject a seat.
But he would then defig his vehicle, which disqualifies him from the fight. And so us, Squid Game style, watching him just assassinate him for leaving his vehicle. He broke the rules.
It's an interesting one. Because in the film, he does leave his vehicle.
He does, but it's only for one shot where the plane is burning behind him.
Maybe we allow him a pass just to recreate that moment again. But instead of Nazis coming over the hill, it's Venom.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll allow that. So he can eject simply for the purposes of that one-shot recreation. And it is an option. Like, it's not like... I don't know if this helps, but it's not like, Max can sort of just leave, he just leaves he makes the conscious choice to just leave the vehicle. The plane has an ejector button. It's an actual tool that can be used in the plane. I don't know if that helps at all. But what I think happens, the plane going down, I think Venom jumps, Farrier ejects, Max is blown to smithereens with the plane, Farrier lands, recreates the end of Dunkirk before Venom eats his head. Yeah, it's a classic head bite. He's done for. And now all our vehicular players are now off the field.
But I think that can happen because, when you're such a dangerous player, people go for you, people target. That's what Venom did, and, it's the only smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say, Dan, there's only 3 characters left. Venom, Eames, who's severely injured, and CBB's Bedtime Story, Tom Hardy.
Wow. Okay. So I think at this point, Eames, if he doesn't get his help from Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy, he's done for. And I think Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy is like, you have fulfilled your purpose. Go to sleep. And just...
What betrayal?
Betrays poor Eames.
I don't know. I see it as there's a 2-on-1. There's CBB's Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy and Eames versus Venom.
Oh, now here's where Venom's special can come into play. Venom famously can leave Eddie and
not that he's already the powerful one in this scenario.
I don't know, if you're going up against the power of Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy, that's a godlike power. The ability to turn you to sleep with a few words. That's tough. But Venom can famously leave Eddie to join to other people. So I think that's a special move. He joins to another fighter to, like, turn them.
You just want CBB's bedtime stories to have a symbiote, don't you?
I do.
You want Venom to read you a bedtime story.
That's exactly what I want.
That this realistically happens. What I ponder is I think Eames is sort of hidden slightly. You know, he's injured, he's caring about himself. He's not in the main battle of the fight. I think Venom approaches CBB's bedtime stories Tom Hardy with his carrying the Gruffalo, looking very, you know, kind. And I think this is where Eddie Brock and Venom have that collision in you must spare him because he's such a nice innocent man reading bedtime stories. How dare you attack him?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good... Although what, from their perspective, yeah, bedtime stories Tom Hardy has only ever been kind to people. Although he's secretly been taking people off the field, he's secretly been, he's openly been quite kind. So, yeah, I don't think Eddie wants to go for it. I think Eddie stopped Venom from killing him.
Wow.
Which could be their downfall.
Wow. It could be their downfall.
So I think... Now, here's the question, though. Can bedtime stories Tom Hardy put both Eddie and Venom to sleep? Because Venom normally can operate the host. Here's
my theory. I think Eddie and CBB's bedtime story has a... they sit down together in the wreckage and they read stories. And I reckon Eddie is on the verge of nodding off. Eames waiting to pounce into the mind. However, Venom is aware of this. And I think Venom... I don't know. It's a matter of, does Venom bite the head off of CBB's bedtime stories Tom Hardy?
I have two scenarios.
I think it's more than possible.
I can propose here. Scenario one. Indeed. Eddie falls asleep. This is bedtime stories Tom Hardy's downfall, because with Eddie asleep, Venom takes the steering wheel. He goes straight for Tom Hardy bedtime stories, takes his head off, and then Eames, it's not a problem. He can just deal with him easily. Or the perhaps more interesting, if less plausible alternative. Eddie falls asleep. Eames takes out Eddie in his sleep. So Eddie's dead, but Venom's not. Venom needed a new host. Jumps onto bedtime stories Tom Hardy. They're now a fighter. They just easily kill Eames. And now emerging from this grand battle, we have a bedtime stories Tom Hardy with the power of Venom.
I love it. I think it's an interesting one. I think as much as I want that to happen, I feel that realistically that does what could happen is whilst Eddie is asleep, Eames goes into his head and they have some kind of showdown. Meanwhile, Venom and CBB's bedtime stories has a showdown.
Oh, no, this...
I mean, to be honest...
This could end in tragedy.
The more I think about it... How are you thinking?
I was thinking, if Venom immediately kills bedtime stories Tom Hardy, and Eames, with his power of the dream world, kills Eddie Brock, that means Venom's stuck without a host, except Eames, who's about to die anyway. So we could end where all of our players are dead, because just the way that...
Well, here's my thing.
Yeah.
The more I thought about it, the more I'm buying into it, because I think Eames goes for the kill immediately once he's in the dream. He doesn't mess about. I think Venom showboats a bit. Eyes, lungs, pancreas.
Oh yeah, he does.
And I think whilst he's monologuing, Eddie is killed, and I think Venom attaches himself to CBB's bedtime stories Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more it seems like the most plausible one.
It does. And then Venom, using bedtime stories Tom Hardy, gets revenge for his beloved Eddie. He savagely just rips Eames apart. He just tears him apart. He strangles him with his own intestines. It's horrible.
Yeah,
but
I think it gets to a scene where, Eames is leant up against a tree, very badly injured still, and Venom, as CB's Bedtime Stories, Tom Hardy, holding the Gruffalo. I can visualize that very, very, very clearly, and Eames can't do anything. He can't run. He can't fight. He doesn't have any powers to, bring Venom out of his shell, or retract him even. So I think it is a simple Venom stroke CB's Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy kill.
Yeah.
Thus
straightforward.
Ending the battle.
Now,
with the first victor, the victor of Tom Hardy's Fightography being CBeebies Bedtime Stories Venom.
Yeah, I love it. Well, for our very first Fightography, we've created a new character. We've given birth to a new form of literature.
We can explore this world, and you can go into children's books.
I think that this is an interesting.
But maybe this is what Eddie wanted, and there can be some tragedy in this. That this is what Eddie always wanted from Venom. There's a more sensitive Venom now.
Yeah, a caring Venom.
And through Eddie's death, Venom has learnt what Eddie has been trying to teach him all the time. It's beautiful.
It's the tragic end to their beautiful romance that they deserve, that we deserve. The story of our time has its ending, its perfect ending, right there. Now, I think if we were to go through our players and award the win, our starting players, I think this is a tricky one to award in a traditional sense because, our winner is a new character. Because if you look at our starting lineup, Venom and Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy are the two essentially left over. Who would you award it to out of them? If you think about it in that way.
I don't know. I think Tom CBeebies Bedtime Stories has exceeded all expectations, but mainly because he was our favourite. I don't know. I think they, it's interesting. There's a race near where I used to live growing up, the Great North Run. It might not be the Great North Run. And this is going to sound like a tangent. I could be completely wrong. But it was a famous race up north, so probably the Great North Run. And famously, the very first Great North Run ended in a draw, when the two people racing to the finish line, instead of battling one another, they held each other's hands and helped each other over the finish line. I think we can instill a similar sort of notion.
Yeah. I'm happy with that. I think it's a good message to start on. Our podcast is literally bringing more love, more kindness into the world.
And I'm also open because Tom Hardy's a famous actor. In 6 months he'll be doing another show. I'm sure we'll be getting him to do a rematch on Fightography.
Oh yeah.
So I think in this rematch, Venom, CBeebies Bedtime Stories Venom, can be one of the new competitors.
Oh, definitely.
In this rematch.
And even beyond a rematch, I think we've got to do a Champion of Champions episode one day when we've done enough of these. And I think I'm looking forward to exploring the full potential of CBeebies Bedtime Stories Tom Hardy Venom. The power they could have.
Before we finish up here, who do we think was a standout? Who do we think maybe didn't perform as well as we'd hoped?
Okay, yeah.
What are your thoughts on what occurred?
Our Match of this Day style stats rundown. I think the underperformer was Bane. It's got to be said. He went out a lot earlier than we would hope.
But in characterful style.
In characterful style, but I was looking forward to seeing Bane attempt to break the back of someone in a car.
Crunch everyone's backs.
How do you break the back of someone in a car? So he's my underperformer. So what about you?
Yeah, I'm looking at Bane. I'm looking at... I think Ronnie and Reggie Cray were dealt a bad hand to start with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Megamind.
He had a tragic loss.
I thought the standout, though, Ivan Locke.
Yeah.
Standout performance.
Oh, I'd agree.
Did he get the most kills? Maybe not. I think maybe Venom got the most kills, actually.
Let's see, hang on. But, so, Ivan Locke got...
Or Eames.
2 or 3?
2. I think he got 2. I think Eames got 2, and I think Venom got at least 2.
Yeah. So it's about even, but considering the players, either lock, man of the match.
Yeah. And there we have it. That is our first episode of Fightography,
Indeed.
where we explored Tom Hardy's Fightography.
Edward Thomas Tom Hardy, CBE, has his Wikipedia, will tell you.
Our champion being CBB's Bedtime Stories, Venom.
I think.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to doing it again. Next week will be a surprise next week. I'll be choosing.
Same.
Max, are you excited about who it could be?
Yes, because next week you're choosing and I've got no idea, and I'm very excited to see who.
It'll be another...
So yeah, I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, another algorithm-friendly actor. Do you agree with our ruling? Do you agree with who we've chosen? If not, you can let us know on our Twitter, on our Instagram. Our Twitter is Jazz Lasagna. I'm pretty sure there's an underscore in there. I'll put up a poll. So I'll put up a poll with who was our last four. I'll put up a poll with them and see who our audience selects.
Maybe put them all. See what happens. See what we can do.
Well, I can only do a poll of four,
but yeah.
so I'll have to.
Well, maybe the last four, or maybe we'll see. If you've got anything else that you'd like to say to us, you can always email us at jazzlasagna@gmail.com. And thank you for watching, and tune in next time for another Fightography.